Somehow this is not plugged in.
Okay, now I think my microphone, now my headset's working, so I hope you can still hear me okay. Shalom, everyone, and welcome to Coffee and Connection, week 177. I actually was really feeling connected to today's topic because I'm having one of those days today, one of those days where you just feel like kind of out of it, kind of like hard to get motivated, hard to get moving. And I think it's really important to like have a real life conversation about these kinds of days and have like a real, heart to heart conversation about like in real time in like reality, right? We don't just want to talk about like, all the like ideal whatever stuff, like in realness, like when you're having a day like that, how do you handle it? And what does it mean? And how can we break out of it? But what we want to be careful of, because a lot of times, a lot of the advice that's given and the thoughts that we have when we're having such a day is kind of very much we can feel guilty. We can start to like, try to overwhelm ourselves and push ourselves, which can actually make the situation worse, right? So let's talk about the first of all the reasons why we may sometimes have these days where we just, you don't feel like doing anything, right? These days where you're just like tired, or you feel like you just can't get started, you can't get moving, you just kind of want to like, I don't know, for me, it's like I just want to sit on the couch and curl up under a fuzzy blanket and like not do anything. Why does that even happen? So let's go through some of the reasons why that might happen. Now, by the way, I just want to make kind of like a public service announcement. I'm not talking about anything here that might be a medical thing, like a depression kind of thing. Or, sometimes we may need some certain minerals or vitamins, or we may need food, or sometimes we just need sleep, even. But what's important to, I'm not a doctor and I'm very clear about that. But one thing I will say is that the ideas that I'm going to talk about today can help us be really clear when the issue might be more than what we're going to talk about, right? If you give yourself the space, you do, the different ideas that we're going to talk about today, and you still find yourself struggling, then it might be an indication that something more might be going on. You might need to talk to a doctor. You might need to get some blood work done. You might need to take something. I don't know. I just saying, when the more we're giving ourselves the space, and we're going to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today, the more we have awareness of what might be a bigger issue. Okay, or a different kind of issue, a medical issue. Okay, so starting out with just the general reasons why we might feel that way. Number one is that, like I said, we might just be tired. Like, we live busy lives. We have a lot going on. Sometimes we don't get enough sleep. Sometimes we haven't been taking care of ourselves and we're just tired. Sometimes we're just overwhelmed by life. There was a day recently that one of my daughters, really, she's like, I feel like I need to take a day off, but I feel bad just calling in. Like, should I just call in a sick day? Like, that doesn't feel right. And I was listening to her talk and I was like, you 100% need a mental health day. Like, I hear it in your voice, I see it in your body language. Like, you need a mental health day. And sometimes we get overwhelmed by people and stuff and responsibilities and just the world, that like we need a day to just relax, recharge, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like, we reground ourselves. Like, sometimes that happens. So sometimes it really is just an overwhelm, a sense of needing to take care of ourselves physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. Okay. Sometimes we're also like dealing with something. We're having some type of emotion. We're having some type of issue. We're having something come up for us, and it's actually, we're the reason we're struggling to get moving is because we're trying to process it. And that's why, if we're going to say like, what do we do about these things? Well, if you're struggling to get moving because you're tired, you're overwhelmed, you're exhausted, what you want to do about that is give yourself space to heal. Give yourself time to sleep. Give yourself time to, relax, to not be in the hustle bustle of the world for a day. If what's coming up for you is like emotional stuff, you're processing something, give yourself time to process it. Allow yourself to have the opportunity to process and and feel the feelings, feel the emotions that are coming up. I think with both of these, we live in a culture which often wants us to like push through everything, right? We live in like this hustle culture, right? Where like you're supposed to, there's this like, these, all these messages of like always getting things done, always doing so much, right? If you ask, I have done this, I have been kind of like self researching this for the last like few years. If you ask anyone on most days, how are you? What's going on? The answer that people, you can test this yourself, just notice it around you. The answer people most give is busy. People use it to answer, how's life? How's it going? What's going on? Busy. It's busy. And it's true. Life is busy, but we also kind of live in a society that values busyness, that it almost feels like you're supposed to be busy. Right? We feel like busyness is how we feel productive. It's how we seem like it's almost like a way to deal with the fact that there's more to do than we can ever do. It's like, well, I'm busy, I'm busy, I'm busy. Like, at least I'm busy trying to get it done. And the reality is that there is a lot to do, and we often are busy. And some days we need to not be busy and be okay with that, right? Be okay with having a day that we're not busy, being okay with having a day that we don't get so much done, even if we have a ton to do, because we need that day. We need that day to relax, or we need that day to process. We need that day to take care of ourselves, and giving yourself that permission to not be busy all the time, to give yourself permission to not have to hustle that day, to just kind of take care of you, and knowing, as we always talk about here, that that matters because you matter. So take if all I did today was take care of me, well, that's not a just. You did something important, right? If one of your children was homesick and you spent the whole day taking care of them, okay, it's true. You might at the end of the day feel like, oh my gosh, all I did was take care of my child and I had all these things to do. And then you'd probably assure yourself, okay, but today I had to be a mother. Today I had to take care of my child. And the same thing, that sometimes we have to take care of ourselves, and being okay with that, making peace with that. Because what can often happen is, if we're hustling and pushing and saying, I have to get more done, I can't believe I didn't get anything done, is that now we're actually, if what we really need is quiet within our brain, quiet around us, if what we need is a day to process emotions, and now we're pushing ourselves or guilting ourselves or stressing ourselves, we're actually making it worse, right? Instead of, it's kind of like doing self-care and feeling guilty about it. You take the time to do it, but then you're actually making it worse because you took the time, but you didn't actually allow the healing that needed to happen. Because as you're giving yourself the time, you're also stressing about the time, right? So we really what's most important, not just giving yourself that day, if you're, especially if you're not doing anything anyways, but noticing if it's not going to work, right? We can't always just push through it, right? Often that's the advice that's given. Push through it. Sometimes we can do that and sometimes we can't. And if you can't, to acknowledge, like, okay, I guess I really need this day. I guess I really need this time. I guess I'm really not up for whatever's on my to-do list today. I guess I'm really not up for getting things done. So, and giving yourself some love in that space, giving yourself some understanding. Now, I'll also say that sometimes when we have days like that, it can be because we don't feel like a clear direction on what it is that we need to do that day. And we feel like, I'm supposed to be busy, I'm supposed to be busy, but like what? I have time to do something, but what am I supposed to do? Or we feel like we're just running on the hamster wheel, accomplishing, doing like the laundry and the carpool and the dishes and the work and the this and the that, but like what? For what? And especially I think this time of year, because on the one hand, it's like, okay, we're not crazy busy with like all these holidays, and okay, some of you may have just come off of a winter break with your kids, but we're not like busy in the middle of any type of the chagim. But at the same time, there can be this sense of like expansiveness at our time, which on it feels like, oh, this is a great time to get things done. On the other hand, what? what am I getting done? Because we're so used to being caught up in like the calendar giving us what to do, or, everything that needs to get done giving us what to do. That when we're like, oh, I have all this time to do something, then it's like, well, what? What am I doing? And then we could feel like a sense of like just un like this, how what's the word? Non-clarity, disclarity of like, well, what could I be doing? And so in that situation, you can also think of like, okay, well, what do I want to do? Right. And this can actually help you not only if you're feeling a sense of like loss of what to do, but also as a motivating factor of like, okay, I don't feel like doing anything today. What do I feel like doing? Because any little thing that you do, especially if you're doing something to nurture yourself, becomes not only something to do, but something that helps you to feel better and that can help you to get out of the overwhelm or out of the unknown of how to spend your time. You see how like you can be killing two birds with one stone. So like this morning when I was like, oh, I don't know, I don't really know what I feel like doing. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do I'm gonna do a yoga video. I'm gonna at least get my yoga in, which like always makes me feel good, even if it hurts. So I'm just gonna get that in. Right. So then no matter what, I did get something done. And I did. I did get that done. And that was great. And then you can kind of go to, okay, so what's the next thing I want to do? What's the next thing I could do? What do I have later in the day that like I can say, okay, I'm going to do that later. So now I'm going to give myself some time to rest and really doing it lovingly and mindfully while also being aware of like what's coming up for me. Not like you need an excuse to take like called like the mental health day, not that you need an excuse to not feel like doing anything, but you can also in like that kind of like very empathetic, curious way, be like, what's going on? What's coming up for me? Am I tired? Do I need some energy? Do I need a friend? Am I dealing with some emotion? Is there something that's bothering me? And give yourself that like time and space and energy to get curious with it in a loving way instead of a like, what's wrong with me? Right? Like pressuring yourself, like just get moving. Either we could do it in this like nasty, judgmental way, let's like, what's wrong with you? Or we could do it in this like, evil trainer kind of way, like, get up, get moving, like that's so not inspiring. Like it doesn't actually, right, get most like I don't know, it doesn't inspire me. That's not going to make me want to get up. And just get like, okay, so what do I need? What do I want? What's coming up for me? And give yourself like those as you're taking care of yourself, it's also going to be easier for yourself. This is going to sound weird, but to open up to yourself if you're dealing with emotions or you're dealing with a feeling of unease, you're dealing with a feeling of like, what do need to get done? Or if you're dealing with this feeling of like I'm always busy, what am I dealing with? Or if you're feeling like you really need a friend or you really need some time to yourself or you really need to feel appreciated or you really need to feel some anything. You need to eat, you need to sleep, you need a shower, you need some exercise, you need a walk, you need a friend, you need um, some fun. The more you're being loving to yourself, the more that's going to like become aware. You're going to be able to be aware of it. You're going to hear it from yourself, right? And the more we're like the more we're judging ourselves and being mean to ourselves and trying to pressure ourselves, the less we're going to be open to hearing what's actually going on for us, right? So, those are some of the thoughts that I wanted to share with all of you. And I think the most important thing is to give yourself that love, is to give yourself that like self-compassion and the awareness that like sometimes we just need it. Sometimes we need some space to ourselves for whatever reason. And any of the reasons that I mentioned are valid and good and healthy and important to give yourself that space, right? We know that sometimes kids need days off school. People need days off work, right? We need a day to just like take care of ourselves. And it's not doing nothing. It's a day to refresh. Now you could say, but Hannah, isn't that what Shabbos is for? So I was just having this conversation with somebody like Shabbos is that on a spiritual level, but we also all know that for many, and this is kind of makes me a little crazy, like how sometimes people talk about Shabbos as like this, oh, it's like the day of relaxation. Like, did any of you actually find that you like work harder on Shabbos than any other day of the week? Like the kids are home and you have to deal with them and you have to deal with making Shabbos and serving Shabbos and cleaning Shabbos. Maybe you have guests, maybe your kids are running around, maybe you have to like go a million places, walk around. Like there's a lot going on. So it's not necessarily the physical, emotional, like mental rest that we might need, right? And even if you have Sundays, which I haven't had Sundays in almost 25 years, so I almost don't even know what they are anymore. I can't even fathom. Although the interesting thing is that even the people that have Sundays, what I hear from my clients most often is how Sunday is like the most stressful day of the week. That Sunday is, again, they're just running their kids around to different places, pressure to do something, pressure to get chores done, pressure to get the whole house in order. So, like, sometimes, like, we do just need a day to ourselves. We do need to take care of ourselves. Let's not also forget, like, it's not only at the middle of the year, but it's also the coldest time of the year, right? This, I always remember that, like, if we ever have a snow warning in Jerusalem, and it really is like a warning because we're not really equipped to handle snow, so it becomes like how like you really have to prepare to be stuck at home if it really snows. It's always around Tu B'Shvat. Isn't that wild? Like, we think of Tu B'Shvat as like, oh, like things are blossoming and blooming, like it's the spring. No, no, it's the coldest part of the year. February is always the coldest part. Shvat is the coldest part of the year. So the winter blues can really be catching up to us. Um, and it's all of the seasonal stuff is real. It's real. So what I'm really just wanted to share with you all here is like give yourself some love, give yourself some empathy, give yourself some understanding that like not every day is a day of hustle. Not every day is a to-do day. Not every day is going to be as productive as you might want it to be, and making peace with that. Why? Because you're not a robot. You're a human being. And if there's stuff going on that you need to process, also, you're only going to be able to process it if you stop and give yourself the space to process it. And then you'll see, can I process it? Do I need to speak to someone? How do I need to deal with this? What do I need to shift? What do I need to work on? Whether it's physical, emotional, spiritual, something going on in your relationship, whatever it is, it's so important to give yourself that space to heal, to recharge, to get in touch with it, and to then, when you're ready, to be able to move forward with it. And a lot of times we tell ourselves we can't stop because then we'll never start. But the reality is that it's only when we give ourselves that permission to rest that our body replenishes in a way that we can move forward. So I hope this was helpful for everyone. I hope you're all feeling good, and I wish us all a warm and meaningful rest of our winter, and just be loving of ourselves however we're feeling on any given day. And I'd love to hear from you what came up for you as you were listening to this, if you relate to it, which ideas are resonate with you and that you're going to try. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Please God, same time. Feel good. Until then, may we all be blessed to live, love, and be loved with all our hearts. Goodbye for now.